Good morning, everyone. Glad that you tuned in. I hope that you're doing well today. We have a very good show for you. My friend Rich Hake is with me today, and Rich has been on the show once before. You have had an exciting event in your life where you said yes to the Lord sending you to a country I've barely heard of.
Yeah.
We'll hear about that in a moment, but here's the verse that I want us to take with us today, and you'll see how it applies to what Rich is going to say. But in Mark chapter 9 at verse 41 says, anyone who gives a cup of water in my name will not lose his reward. It's important when we do even the smallest things for people, and water is hardly a small thing when you don't have it.
To
When
to
you don't
us,
have it.
yeah, no big deal, but to much of the world, very
Yes.
important. Right.
So, Rich, you start a little bit with, well, let's give the story. You go to Sierra Leone,
Sierra Leone, yep.
and that is, I do know it's in Africa, but where in Africa?
So Sierra Leone is in West Africa,
West.
and
How far
and
north?
it's just above the equator, a few degrees.
Okay.
So it's a little warm,
Yeah.
quite humid,
I'll bet.
and some jungle and some Sierra. Beautiful place. It was at one point a British Crown colony, and
So, do they speak English, something?
they do speak English as an official language. And because that country was actually created for refugees of the slave trade, they also speak Creole, just like they do in the Gulf of Mexico.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, how in the world did you get to go to Sierra Leone?
Well, it's a longer story than we can tell here, but my cousin, who I'd witnessed to before, came to Christ later in life, became a commissioned missionary to Sierra Leone.
Okay.
He was formerly a well driller, and he has a well drilling rig or two currently in Sierra Leone.
Not for oil,
No, not for oil, only for water.
for water.
And the problem in Sierra Leone is really threefold. But at one point, when it was a colony, they had infrastructure, paved roads, cities, all those kinds of
Okay.
things. Then they had a 12-year civil war in 1991 to 2002 that destroyed the infrastructure in cities.
Oh.
And then, if you recall, Ebola showed up in
Yeah,
Africa.
was that out of they had
It's
that?
right in the province I was in for 2 years. And so that decimated the population. And so what we have now is something where you can walk down a street and see the remnants of a city, even some street lights, but no electricity, no running water.
Is that
And
right?
people live in thatched huts, and much like they did 5, 6, 700 years ago.
So it really degressed.
Degressed, and they drink from swamps and runoff and whatever's available. There's a lot of parasitic disease and things like that as a result.
So your cousin then invites you to go with him to help build a well. Is that
Yeah,
basically it?
actually, it was at my father's wake. He
Hmm.
said, you should come with us to Africa sometime. And I thought, well, I'm mature enough that I can take a vacation and I can maybe help out, but I'm not going to run marathons or
No.
large evangelistic
Yes.
services. But he said, no, we need technical people that are mature, because a lot of what happened in Sierra Leone during the Civil War was an entire generation grew up unschooled, and there's very little good, clean running water. And so we use our well drilling as an entry into the largely Islamic backland to put in a meeting house, which is used as a church and a school,
Wow.
and then a well.
Yes.
And this gives us an entry into these villages, and there's some exciting stories we can tell about what happens
And
there.
I'm asking Rich to come back tomorrow because I want to hear some of the stories. But
Sure.
so you go there, and is the goal can you get the well going in a 2-week period, or is it an ongoing and other
Well,
people stay and work? How does?
Well, what happened initially was we trained, and we have an indigenous team that goes out and runs this well drilling rig. And the
Oh.
well drilling rig is not what you and I think of as a modern well drilling rig. This is 1950s vintage stuff, so it can be fixed with pliers and screwdrivers. But because of the lack of training and experience with this kind of thing, when technical problems occur, they need a technical specialist to come in and help them. So they lost a well drilling bit in a well that shut down the rig for 5 months. They had a well which they couldn't figure out how to clean and sanitize. It was cursed by a local shaman, and so that needed some technical assistance. And then there was a set of training associated with hygiene, first aid, and clean water that we did while we were
So
there.
what did you actually do when you get there? Or can you tell me about
Yeah.
your experience from
So
your perspective? What did you, so you arrive, Sierra Leone, you say, it's hot here maybe. Or I don't know what you
it's
said.
hot.
What did you say?
It's hot, and they have electricity 2 hours a day, so you
Oh,
better get somewhere where there's a fan for 2 hours.
I see.
But beyond that, basically my job was to go in and do some teaching. So I had an open door to schools because they found out, oh, this guy's got a degree. Um, and I worked on these well drilling rigs as a youngster. And
You
so
did.
you,
Wow.
how do we fix some of this stuff, which is broken? And then finally, there was a little, since I kind of work in the health space, uh, the hospital in Mokanji, Sierra Leone, was destroyed during the Civil War, and so parts of that need to be rebuilt, including an operating suite, things like that. So that's what we worked on.
Yes. So were you, I assume Mukanji, is that like the capital or biggest city?
No,
No.
Mokanji is a big city of about 1,500 people that at one point was a local capital of a small
Okay.
province. And then after the Civil War, it went from about 20,000 people to its current size. And so it's a large regional city, if there is
But
such a thing.
and you say it was mostly Muslim,
Mhm.
but they welcome you in,
Yeah, we had a discussion with one imam one day,
and
and
then
he's
Iman is the head,
the head of
typically,
that
like we might
mosque, or
call a pastor or
like a
something.
pastor or priest.
Yeah.
And he said, the interesting thing about Christians that I don't understand is they were the last ones to leave during the war and the first ones to come back and help us with Ebola. So even though they weren't Christians, they understood that we were really there to help. And it wasn't so much that they tolerated us, they welcomed us for that reason.
That is so great to hear. A lot of times we say that, you know, Christians were meant to be known for our love, and that's exactly what you're showing. But
Exactly.
obviously, you're benefiting also from the love that other Christians showed in the past.
Absolutely.
So they, in a way, helped lay the door open for you.
It's a really key lesson because the tracks that we lay, for
Yeah,
good or bad, are
exactly.
important somewhere down the road. They
And
might have sown, but we had a chance to reap what we were
and
doing.
I've had that experience also, where you go, and I mean, we think that, oh, we're totally gonna butt heads with the Islam. And I've been invited into Iman's home in other countries. It seems like we have more tension here in some ways, but
Yeah,
anyway, Rich, that is awesome. And was it a successful?
it was successful. I can't
They're
take,
starting to do the water. They have water now?
we put in 2 wells. We rescued the missing bit. It was a spectator sport. We got to tell the story in John 4 about the woman at the well while they were drilling to
Oh,
find
that's so
this
great.
lost piece. People came to Christ there. And then we opened the well. I've got a picture of that we can show you. And then we went on to 2 other villages. And the second village is the really interesting story.
We're going to save that for tomorrow. And so Rich is going to come back tomorrow, friends. And you have not heard stuff like what he's going to say. I'm just going to tell you that. It's amazing. Tune back in. We'll see you tomorrow.